Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
But shalom.
Shalom.
This Shabbat is, again, we have a double portion of two parashot, and it concludes the book of Leviticus, the third book or the middle book of the Torah that spoke about the Mishkan, how to operate the Mishkan. We see that they constructed it at the second part of the book of Exodus after coming out of Egypt, and the whole book of Leviticus taught us how to operate it and the offerings and everything else. And next Shabbat, when we do the inauguration of Ohel Moed, meeting at Leah's, we will be, again, the timing couldn't have been planned better. We begin the book of Numbers, which is in Hebrew the book of Bamidbar, in the desert. So literally, that apparatus that is called Ohel Moed, that the tent of meeting that was constructed and we just learned how to operate everything, is going to start its journey in the desert for the next 40 years. Next week, when we're at your house, it'll be the beginning of the journeys in the desert with Ohel Moed. So it's really incredible. So it just shows the hand of God. Timing is always the hand of God. This is if you want to know if God is in the picture, God is always in the picture, right? But if you want like a gushpanka, as we say, a seal that approved that God is in it, it's timing that you would never be able to plan. So for us to start on Lag BaOmer, to the beginning that we started on Lag BaOmer, the fire of Lag BaOmer is the fire of the Torah that we started on that day. And then the first meeting of Ohel Moed is on the day that the journeys in the desert start. I couldn't have planned it or written it better.
Unbelievable. I'm so humbled. This is so,
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
yeah,
That's all I
yeah,
can say.
yeah.
It's
Paul?
wonderful.
I just wanted to let you know about two things. Believe it or not, on Newsmax, they have like a movie of
Mm-hmm.
Moses, and it's excellent. It's
Mm.
really good. And John Voight goes to Israel. He's in Israel, and he has a handful of rabbis, and they go to sites and they talk about the biblical history of those sites. They did
Mm-hmm.
Beersheba today.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's Newsmax. Now, if you go to
Amazing.
CNN, they tell about how the Israelis treat that Muslims so bad that when they get
Right.
them in prison, they torture them and they starve them. And CNN has a whole big show about it.
And I just saw this article about how this last research from Harvard about the Middle Eastern DNA, and even Ashkenazi Jews show that they are from the Levant, and they're closer to Middle Eastern other nations than European nations. And it shows very specifically how they actually, Ashkenazi Jews are the closest to the Lebanese population. It's very interesting because they both trace to I don't know if the Venetians or the not the Venetians, the uh, sorry, something closer to that, but they trace the same origin in the Levant, and then of course they are close to all the other Jewish population. And actually, for you, Deborah, they found that the closest DNA to Jews are the Druze.
They're Jewish.
They're Druze. So I wonder if they were converted to Islam by force at a certain point, and then they broke off, and instead of going to Judaism, they're they said that their ancestor is Moses's father-in-law, Jethro. So, but that's amazing. So they're showing that Jews and Iranians, the Persians, have very, very close DNA. So it's amazing, amazing. This is hopeful because, maybe we'll just say, okay, we do have common ancestry and, one family that's split apart, but let's live together peacefully and then convert uh, our swords into plowshares. So, okay. So let's begin with talking about our parasha. So there are two parashot. We'll mainly concentrate on the first one because the concept is so beautiful that this is one of the gifts that Jews the Torah brought to the world, and the whole developed world, the Western world, is fundamentally stands on these principles. So, in general, what we're going to be talking about is the Shmita and the Jubilee, the seventh year cycle that we let the land fallow and we don't work the land. We just eat from what is already there, but we're not allowed like Shabbat. Whatever you prepared before Shabbat, you eat on Shabbat, but you don't prepare or pick or collect your food before on Shabbat. It's you prepare, and there's an expression in Hebrew that says, "Mi shelo tarach be'erev Shabbat, lo yochal b'Shabbat." If someone doesn't make the effort to prepare the food before Shabbat, they don't eat on Shabbat. So the concept of the Shabbat every 7 days repeats itself, the same pattern in years, every 7 years. Now we're in the counting of the Omer too. Counting of the Omer is the counting 49 days from Passover to Shavuot. And then on Shavuot is the 50th day that the rabbis tell us this is the day that we received the Torah. So you have to work your way. So it means that this is not just a physical journey. It means it's a spiritual journey. There's something about the rest on Shabbat, the rest on the seventh year that is spiritual. It's not just letting the body rest and regroup and re-energize. It is a spiritual rest. It's a spiritual landing. If you look at steps, if it were 49 steps, climbing from the depth of Egypt to the height of Mount Sinai, so imagine that every seventh step there would be a landing, and then you would stop there to catch your breath and then continue. So what the Torah is talking about now is those seventh year rest. The Shmita literally means to drop. You drop everything. And then after the 7 cycles of 7 years, there is the 50th year. So it is exactly the same process as counting the Omer into the 50th day. Here we count the 50 towards the 50th year. And it's called Jubilee, the Yovel. Now, I looked at the etymology of the word jubilant and Jubilee, and actually turns out they don't come from the same source necessarily. But I believe that even though the dictionary says it doesn't come from the same source, clearly they share some sort of an origin that relates to it. But in America, when you want to say that someone is happy, you say jubilant, and so even though it's not etymologically connected necessarily to Jubilee. I think it definitely spiritually connected. So we are very happy we're jubilant on the Jubilee. And this is it's the epic, it's the essence of life. The Jubilee is the essence of not just our lives as people and happiness, and we'll talk about the greatness of it, but also in our connections and links and relationship to God. This Shabbat, sabbatical, Jubilee, these years and days connect us directly to God. So I'm going to first kind of explain how it connects to God, and then because that's the basis for everything. Last Shabbat we read about the Shabbat itself, when the Torah lists all the holidays on the Jewish calendar. It starts with Shabbat. It doesn't start with Passover. Passover comes after. But Shabbat is the essence of and the foundation of all holidays, every sacred day. How do we know that? Once is because the first time that the Torah mentioned the word holy, it is in reference to Shabbat, that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the Sabbath and made it holy. So that is the essence of all holiness. And holiness is our way to relate to God on earth. We don't have any other way to do that because God is not physical. So all we can do to relate to God is to relate to God through time. We take the physical and we bring it into the time. So it's if Shabbat is a sanctuary in time, just like the temple is a sanctuary in place. But really, God is not there, not in the place, not really in the time either. But when we sanctify the time, we create an appointment with God, sacred appointment. Ohel Moed, the word for the tent of meeting, means the tent of meeting. It's an appointment. Moed in Hebrew means either an appointment, it has multiple meanings, a meeting, and a sacred time. So we dedicate that to God. So holiness is separating time, space, and anything we designate. So that's why Shabbat, as the essence of holiness, is the connection to God. So that's one reason why Shabbat is the connection to God. The second is literally its purpose and what it represents. What it represents is freedom. Because think about it. A slave does not control his time. That's the definition of slavery, that somebody else tells you what to do, when and where and how much to do. When you're a free person, you decide your own calendar. And we know from many examples in history that the calendar was always the basis for the society. If somebody wanted to start a new society, just like when Christianity moved from into the Gregorian calendar, from the Julian calendar, it represented a new sovereignty. Even in Judaism, there was definitely a big debate between the Essenes and the temple, that they had different calendars, and different calendars meant that they um, celebrated the holidays on different days. And there's an example in the Talmud about this rabbi that came to a place, and they were already celebrating Yom Kippur, and it was a big debate between the rabbis and those who were in the temple, the Kohanim that were at the temple, because they announced the new month only when they clearly saw the moon, while the Essenes who withdrew from the temple and went to the desert, they had a set calendar, and it's the Tzedokim. They had their set calendar, and so they really went by the solar and adjusted it to between the two, the solar and the lunar. But the point is that the calendar shows that you are a sovereign. Nobody dictates to you what is the day, what the holiday today. You dictate to yourself. So Shabbat is where we connect with God, because what God did was create the world in 6 days, and then he rested on the seventh. So when we do the same, we create on the weekdays, and then we rest on the Sabbath. It means that we directly relate to God. And then the third level of this that connects everything is that the whole point of coming out of Egypt, or for God to put us in Egypt to begin with, to be enslaved, and then taking us out of Egypt, was to show us the stark difference, of course, between slavery and freedom. That freedom is really the essence of life. And it's not hard to, of course, relate it to Americans, that we say, give me life, give me freedom, or give me death. Right?
Give liberty.
The what? Give me liberty or give me death. So, of course, the Statue of Liberty that we received from France. So this whole thing is the blueprint of the Jewish people. This is what we brought to the world. The Shabbat, the idea that you don't just keep working, that you have a day of freedom, of liberty, of rest. What we essentially did, and that's what we brought to the world, is taking the Egyptian pyramid that was the house of slavery. Literally, the Torah calls it house of slavery, because it's not just the house, it was the system of slavery, and flipped it on its head and said the people are at the top, not the one person, the one dictator at the top. We flipped it and we said, we the people. So that means that if you really care about the people, you care about their social well-being and their spiritual and physical well-being. So we flipped it from slavery to freedom. And the house of God, Ohel Moed, connecting to God and meeting with God, is all about the freedom, is how to live in a free way. And of course, that's the reason that God tells us, don't worship any other gods. So it is, what is he saying? What is God is saying in the Ten Commandments? Is he saying that there are other gods out there, only we shouldn't be worshiping them? Because that's the essence of being enslaved. If you are trying to worship the god of the sun and the god of the moon and the god of Greenport and the god of Southold, so it doesn't end. So it's God says, I created all the forces. And this is something that is very important to to relate to people because people think that when God said in the Ten Commandments, I am your God, you shouldn't have any other gods, he meant to deities. That's not the meaning. When the Torah tells us you shall not have other gods, it does not mean other deities. What it means, the name of God, God has different names. One of them is Elohim. In the beginning, God created the world. Elohim, bara Elohim et hashamayim vet haaretz. God created the heavens and the earth. But what it means, the Elohim, the word El, means power. It doesn't mean divinity. It means power. So there are many powers in this world. Absolutely. The sun is an enormous power, but that doesn't mean we worship the sun. Money is an enormous power, but that doesn't mean we worship money. Um, the golden calf, that's the whole point. Who is going to worship the golden calf and who is going to worship God? If you worship the golden calf, you're very limited. You just limited yourself, your life to a statue, something that is immovable, something that has eyes but can't see, ears and can't hear. So there's no real relationship here. You just limited your own self. But when you worship the God that created the heavens and earth, you have freed yourself because that God is unlimited. It is eternal and infinite. So you're not limited. And that's exactly the difference between being a slave and being free. Egypt means narrow in Hebrew. So you narrow yourself, you narrow your options, you narrow your opportunities. And then if you worship God, you are unlimited in what you can do. Yes, Paul?
I think in our society, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, if not most, worship Mammon, the god of money, of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and the the priests of Mammon are the billionaires. And we look at them as not as ordinary people. If, suddenly you find yourself in a room and there is, I don't know, whoever, whichever one you think of, you go, oh, I was actually in the same room with it. He spoke to me. He shook my hand. It was like, whoa. And to have a great, Bible scholar, eh,
Yeah. So of course, I mean, listen, the people's portfolios become their God. And it's not that it's not good to have a portfolio. Life is a portfolio. This is what I learned on Wall Street, that life is a portfolio and has to be diversified. That you should life is a lot of things. You can't be happy if you only have money. You need money. You need health. You need family. You need socialization. You need a lot of things. It's like our body is constructed of, it's called Ma'aseh Merkava. It's a combination of things that operate as one body, but it's constructed. If the body is healthy, it means that all the parts are working well. Your blood flow is working well, your air, your oxygen, your muscles. So money is like blood, actually. The word for money in Hebrew is the same word as blood. So if your blood is healthy, good, you're a healthy person. But that doesn't mean that you worship blood. And actually we're supposed to not eat blood and throw it away because the soul is in the blood. And so the soul is really what the breath of God in us is really what is important, the life itself that comes from God. Therefore, God is the most important to have in our portfolio. Yes,
I,
Paul?
I think people have the potential to ultimately find out that all the money in the world isn't going to make you happy, isn't going to make you fulfilled. That true happiness comes from serving others. And what's more representative than that, than a family? being able to raise your children and take care of your grandchildren if those circumstances arise will give you much more fulfillment and happiness than large bank accounts without that.
Of course, I mean you need money. It's not that you don't need money, of course, but you need it in the portfolio to do that. Absolutely. So, okay, good. So, we'll start with the text, and we will see now how this whole introduction that there's an idea of hechsher mitzvah. Every mitzvah has a preparation of the mitzvah, so you can fulfill it well. You have to build the sukkah before you sit in the sukkah. So we just introduced this whole concept. So now when we read the text, it'll be a lot clearer where the Torah is coming from. So the parasha is Behar, and it's Leviticus 25. And it says, God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of God. So this is amazing. The Sabbath is first to be listed in all the holidays. The first thing that you come to the land to do is observe the Sabbath. I want to introduce one more concept here, a spiritual concept in having the Shabbat as a first step. The Midrash says that God created the tshuva, the idea of tshuva, of repentance, of coming back, of returning, before he created the world. He had a blueprint of the Torah, and he looked at the blueprint and he constructed the world, built the world based on that. And that Midrash says that before he created the world, he established the element of tshuva. This is related, the same thing relates to before the Israelites entered the land of Israel. They had to establish cities of refuge. Before the people of Israel will enter the land, in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses is going to tell them, before you enter the land, you have to establish cities of refuge. This is the same thing. He's not contradicting God in any way. When God says the first thing you'd have to do is observe the Sabbath, it's the same concept. Tshuva, city of refuge, and Shabbat are the same concept. How is that? Tshuva, of course, if you did something wrong, right? You take a break and you said, I was wrong, and you change your course and you return. City of refuge, if you did something wrong, of course, by mistake, by error, you run to the city of refuge until things are going to be sorted out. And then you can return. So it's the element of giving the option of people to return. And the third one is Shabbat, which is the same thing. There's no, like King Solomon tells us, there's no righteous person in this world that wants to do good and doesn't make mistakes. So you have to allow, after every 6 days of doing things and trying to do better in this world and constructing the 6 days of work, you have to allow a day of return, of a city of refuge, that you sit and think about what you just did for 6 days and where you were mistaken, what are the good things you've done. You have to reflect the soul, as the Greeks, the Greek philosophers teach us, that life devoid of contemplation is not a life. And it's the same thing as liberty, to sit and think, to take the time to think. If you're a slave, your master wants to keep you on the rat race, on the what do you call the wheel, the that wheel, the that keeps going.
That my rat race is good enough.
Yes, so and think about, when you're a big executive on Wall Street. I was it was the reference was that every time you climb up the hamster wheel. So every time you step up in the ranking in the corporate ladder, you go up, you just become a bigger slave. And I saw that, experience that personally when we had to leave our office for 2 weeks every year. So the securities of the commissions can look into our computers to see that we're not trading anything or not using any inside information and so forth. And they and these big executives literally could not detach themselves from the office. They had to be away. They were home, but they would call at least 3, 4 times a day to see what's going on. And I remember telling myself at that point, if I ever find myself in a job that I can't take off, then I can't do it. So so this is the idea. So what I'm trying to introduce here with the tshuva, Shabbat, and the city of refuge, that is before even you create the world or come into any of into the land, is related to what happened in the Garden of Eden. Because God created the world and then placed imperfect creatures in the perfect garden he created that had the tree of life that represents God, of course. So imagine that if, and they, of course, he took into consideration that they would sin, they would do something wrong because they're imperfect. So what does that mean? So if they sin or do anything wrong, that means this whole project has to be tossed out, that they're going to be dead and that's it. You have to create an element like on the highway when you can turn around, an exit that you can turn around if you passed your exit and go around and come back. Actually, the word sin is exactly that. Sin means to miss the target. So if you're on the highway and you missed your exit, tshuva allows you, is that exit on the highway that allows you to get off and come back and go into your destiny or destination. So that is very, very important to understand. So, okay, we continue with the text. It says, what is the Sabbath? It says the land is going to observe the Sabbath, but the Sabbath now has different levels. Of course, it has the seventh day that we talked about, the Torah just talked about in the previous parasha, and now it takes it up a notch, kicks it up a notch. It says, 6 years you may sow your field, and 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in the yield. Okay, same thing like 6 days of work. But in the seventh year, the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, the Sabbath of God. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather grapes of your untrimmed vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. So the land has its own spirit somehow. Of course, it's not a living person, but it has some breath of God in it too. In Japan, it's very interesting. They believe that everything in the world has a spirit. So even if you create a robot, that robot somehow has a spirit. So, and that's how they treat everything. That's why everything they do in life has to be respectful of the item, the space, the food. Everything has a spirit. Yes, Paul?
So I think of this at creation, before the Big Bang, okay, there was God. And after creation, we have the exact same amount of energy and matter as we had at that moment of creation. Created by who? Created by God. Now, to not respect and treat everything with respect is disrespecting God. If you had, Michelangelo made a painting and you go and you draw a mustache on it, that's disrespect. But I like mustaches, it
Yeah,
looks better to me. That's still disrespect. So,
right.
it's even like the Jains have a broom that they walk, they brush the ground before they walk on it so they won't inadvertently step on a bug. Why?
Yeah,
That bug is life, that bug came
yeah.
from something. There are downsides to this, as you can
Right,
imagine.
right, right.
But if you look around, especially this time of year, and you see God's creation surrounding you, what does it do? Every day, if you go to the same place, every day it's changing.
Yeah,
Everything in the world is in a constant state of change,
right.
except for one thing, Hashem, the only
Hashem.
thing that doesn't change.
Yeah, very good. So we have to be respectful of everything. The land has to rest too, has the breath. So, and it says, but you may eat whatever the land during its Sabbath will produce to you. You, your male, female slaves, the hired bound laborers, and who live with you, and your cattle and the beasts in your land may eat all its yields. And then it says, you shall count. So it really is an amazing, what we call an equalizer. You rest. So your body and all the systems kind of come to an equilibrium because life is not necessarily always balanced, especially when we try to do things and chase life. So you come to a place where you remind yourself of God, of the equilibrium, and what is this whole purpose. And then it says, you shall count off 7 weeks of years. Like literally, the Torah uses that word, weeks of years. Like we count to the Omer now, they count the years, 7 times 7 years. And that the period of, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives you a total of 49 years. Okay, so we get to just like the 50th day is the Torah. We receive the Torah, so it has a place of its own, the 50th year and or the day, just like for Christianity, it's the Pentecost. It comes from, of course, five Penta, and it's the 50th day. For us, the 50th day is the Shavuot or the receiving of the Torah. And then it says on the 50th, on the 49th year, so that means it's after the seventh Shmita, the seventh sabbatical year, comes now another year, which means that every 50th year you have 2 years in a row that you can't work the land. So it's like a Shabbat Shabbaton, like Yom Kippur, that is a double Shabbat. And by the way, parenthetical, a comment is when we were talking about the different calendars. So the Zedekites or the Essenes who had the other calendar that was the set calendar, they claimed that every holiday should be on a set day, on the same day every year, meaning Passover will always be on a Wednesday, because that's the day that they left Egypt, on a Wednesday into Thursday. And they constructed the calendar that way. And they said that Yom Kippur will always fall on a Friday. Why? Because it says Shabbat Shabbaton, a double Shabbat, which means that they saw that also as a reference that Yom Kippur, it'll be on Friday and then it'll go into Shabbat. So it's Shabbat Shabbaton, a double Shabbat. So the same thing is here. It's Shabbat Shabbaton. It's the sabbatical year goes into the Jubilee, the 50th year. And then it says on that, you shall hallow the 50th year. You shall proclaim release throughout the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you shall return to your holding, and each of you shall return to your family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow, neither shall you reap the aftergrowth or harvest the untrimmed vine. For it is a jubilee. It shall be be holy to you. You may only eat the growth direct from the field. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to your holding. Again, it repeats that idea. When you shall sell property to your neighbor or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. In buying from your neighbor, you shall deduct only for the number of years since the Jubilee, and in selling to you, you shall be charged only for the remaining crop years. The more such year, the higher the price you pay, of course. You shall not wrong one another, but fear God. For I am the eternal God, I'm the Adonai, am your God. And finally, in this, it says, you shall observe my laws and faithfully to keep my rules, that you may live upon the land in security. The land shall yield its fruit, and you shall eat your fill, and you shall live upon it in security. And he adds a warning and says, and should you ask, what are we to eat in the 7th year, if we may neither sow nor gather in our crops? I will obtain my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that you shall yield a crop sufficient for 3 years. So will be why 3 years? Because even after the sabbatical year, you need to now start over. So you can't eat it immediately. It's another year that you would need to wait. When you sow in the 8th year, you will still be eating old grain of the crop, meaning you'll have enough stored, and you shall be eating the old until the 9th year, until its crops come in. And this is a beautiful idea that God's blessing is when you bring in the groceries from the supermarket and you have your yogurt, the new yogurt, but you still have a little bit of the old yogurt left, which means you're never without yogurt. And then I'm just going to finish this. But the land must not be sold beyond reclaim, for the land is mine. This is very, very important. The land is mine. You are but strangers resident with me. I wouldn't say strangers. It's gerim is someone who immigrated or came along. Strangers mean you really don't belong here. I wouldn't use that in the translation, but it's foreign, maybe, but an immigrant to the land. Throughout the land that you hold, you must provide for the redemption of the land. So that really is the concept of the Jubilee, and we'll explain more. Paul?
Could they eat, or could we eat animals during the Jubilee year?
Yes, it's about the land. It's not about the
Well, without the land,
yeah.
you have no animals. The
Yeah,
animals,
well, the
the animals
animals
have to eat.
the animals eat also the dropping and the everything that came from the land. So you'll have enough grain for your animals as well. But you can eat, yeah, it doesn't prohibit us from eating the animal.
Do they talk about it at
Rabbi,
all?
No, it doesn't have a reference to that. Yes, Leah?
when you said just before a minute ago, you said something about stranger. What did you say?
Said something about what?
Stranger.
The stranger. In Hebrew, the word for when it says, but the land must not be sold beyond reclaim, meaning don't think that when you sell your land, you're selling it forever to somebody. It goes back to its owners after 50th year, but really the real owner is God. He says, "For the land is mine." You are but strangers. So but the translations use the word "you are but strangers resident with me." I wouldn't use that word for the translation. The word in Hebrew is gerim, and gerim means like someone who immigrates into something, because it's also the word for someone who converts into Judaism. So it doesn't mean that once you come to live in the land, you're not strangers in the land. You are Gerim, you are people who immigrated to the land, but you still have some sort of, status in the land. Strangers kind of takes it away. Yes.
Because I think I've mentioned this before, but it's something that you said in Tennessee Williams' play Streetcar Named Desire. I think the last line of the play, spoken by the main character Blanche, as she's being taken away to be treated or something, she says, I always depended on the kindness of
Oh,
strangers.
strangers, right. But that's really strangers because she doesn't know them. So they're strangers to her.
That's been her life story, so
Right,
to speak.
right.
She's
Yes,
dependent on the kindness of
of
strangers, which
strangers.
has always been to me, a very profound
Yes.
thought.
Of course, we don't know that.
As
Some
we
people,
struggle
some
through life.
some people, it's very profound because some people imagine and think that if they have, let's say, just enough money, then they can be self-sufficient. There's no such thing self-sufficient. We as human beings, we always need other human beings. We
We
always
do.
need somebody's kind acts. So it's even if you are very wealthy, but then if you go to a nursing home, right, or assisted
Yes.
living, yes, those people are being paid, but they don't have to be kind to you, or so to speak, or they don't, or they're doing something that for you, they're giving you a service that you can't give yourself. So absolutely, we're all dependent on the kind acts of other people, of strangers, so to speak.
Can I say another thought?
Please, please.
There's a show that we all know, or maybe we hate it, or maybe we like it, called Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And one of the men occasionally on the panel is
Hmm.
this Jewish guy who originally came from Mexico, and he became an extremely wealthy man in America by
Hmm.
creating candy and the product is called Kind.
Oh, right.
KID.
Right, right, right. Yes.
He said he got that name for the business as his father was in a concentration camp in Europe.
Wow.
And when he came out of it, he survived. and came out of the concentration camp, he told his son, who's now this billionaire, he said, I always remember those who were kind to me.
Of course.
And so he named his business Kind, Kind,
Beautiful.
which I think is very close to what you've been talking about.
Right.
Kindness and
Right. You always have to remember.
kind.
You always have to remember that. And this is what God is telling us. You were slaves in Egypt or foreign in Egypt. That's why when you come to your land, you have to remember that and be kind to the strangers or to the foreigner, to the immigrants. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So just to conclude and wrap this whole idea is this is it's all an exercise. It's an exercise of letting go of anything fixed in this world, anything that you would hold on to and say that this gives me life. And God tells us, no, you need to exercise to let go every seventh day, every seventh year, every 50th Jubilee on different levels. You're letting go and you're saying the world does not run because of me. It runs because of God. I'm a participant, so I can let go. I don't have to work on the Sabbath. I don't have to work on the sabbatical year to work the land, and I can give the property back. Of course, you when you sell it, that's exactly what it says. It's not like you're giving it back for free, but you're only selling it in the years that are left towards. So you feel like you're only leasing the land. We really are only leasing lands. We don't buy land. So that exercise of letting go, the same exercise of letting go of the tree of knowledge. Don't eat from it. Don't think that you can consume everything. And the bottom line of all that is an exercise of freedom. When we can, on Friday night, light the candles and say, okay, now it's God runs the world, we take off this heavy bag that we carry the whole week and we put it aside and we rest. We're free. And God say, now do whatever you want. Enjoy your Shabbat. Go to shul first, but then do everything you want. So, but this is really, enjoy, eat, refresh yourself, and regenerate. So that really is, this whole thing is about coming out of Egypt, creating the system of from slavery to freedom. And when we trust God, this is the ultimate freedom for ourselves. And that what makes us the most jubilant. And this whole idea of Jubilee, of freedom, and that creates, of course, a beautiful society that's not just a billionaire that has all the money, but they have to live in a castle. They can't leave the castle and they'll be afraid for their lives. It's the whole society becomes one big castle that we share.